The Galactic Council's warning. The great halls of the Galactic Council were silent. High above a distant star system, inside a space station the size of a small moon, the most powerful beings in the universe gathered. They were the rulers of countless worlds, leaders of ancient empires, and masters of the stars. And now, they had come together for one reason: to deal with humanity. A towering figure, Chancellor Vordax, stood at the center of the circular chamber. His black eyes scanned the room, his golden robes shining under the artificial lights. He raised his hand, and the chamber's holographic screens flickered to life, displaying images of Earth and its people. "We warned them," Vordax said, his deep voice echoing in the chamber. "We offered them a place in our order. We gave them time to submit. But humans—" He paused, looking at the faces of the other council members. "They refuse." The screen shifted, showing videos of human ships attacking small council patrols. Battles in deep space, human soldiers fighting with reckless bravery against superior alien technology. The council had expected them to surrender, to fall in line like all other species before them. But humans were different. "They are dangerous," said another council member, a pale-skinned alien with 3 glowing eyes. "They are aggressive, unpredictable. If we do not crush them now, they will spread like wildfire." Vordax nodded. He turned toward a massive armored alien sitting at the far end of the room. "General Korak, leader of the Council's military forces. What is your recommendation, General?" Vordax asked. Korak leaned forward. His heavy armor groaned under his massive frame. "We must end this now. We will send a final message. One last warning." His voice was like a growl. "If they refuse, we wipe them out." There was silence in the chamber. The council members looked at one another, then slowly nodded in agreement. "It is decided," Vordax declared. "Humanity will have one last chance to bow before us. If they do not—" His cold, black eyes narrowed. "We will make an example of them." Earth, United Terran Command Headquarters. On Earth, deep inside a secret underground base, a group of the most powerful human leaders sat in a dimly lit war room. The tension in the air was thick. They had just received a message. A hologram flickered in the center of the table. Chancellor Vordax's face appeared, cold and expressionless. "Humans," his voice was slow, full of authority. "This is your final warning. The Galactic Council does not tolerate defiance. Surrender your weapons, submit to our rule, accept our leadership, or face destruction." The message ended. Silence filled the room. Then, a heavy voice broke the quiet. "They expect us to kneel," said General Elias Voss, commander of Earth's space fleet. His sharp blue eyes scanned the room. "They think we will surrender, that we will become their slaves." President Sarah Lorne, leader of the United Terran Republic, took a deep breath. "And if we refuse?" A young officer stepped forward, his face pale. "Madam President, our intelligence reports confirm that the Council is gathering their fleets. Their forces are over 10 times larger than ours." Another officer added, "If we fight them, we might not win." Voss slammed his fist on the table. "If we don't fight, we will become nothing more than servants in their empire. We will be controlled, our future decided by aliens who see us as nothing more than insects." The room fell silent again. Everyone knew the truth. This was not just about survival, it was about freedom. Sarah Lorne looked at each person in the room, then turned to Voss. Her voice was calm, but strong. "What do you suggest, General?" Voss's lips curled into a determined smile. "We show them what it means to be human. The Galactic Council's fleet arrives." High above Earth, massive alien warships appeared in the sky. Their metallic hulls shone against the sunlight, covering the stars like a dark storm. The people of Earth looked up in horror as the largest fleet they had ever seen hovered above their planet. A deep voice echoed across the world, transmitted through every radio, television, and device. "This is the will of the Galactic Council. This is your final warning. Tension filled the air. People held their breath. Would Earth surrender, or would humanity fight? In the underground base, President Lorne stood tall. She stared at the incoming fleet on the screens, then turned to her officers. Send our response. A technician pressed a button, activating Earth's reply to the Council. A simple, clear message. Humanity does not kneel. And with that, the countdown to war had begun. The first strike. The silence before war is always the loudest. Deep in the void of space, just beyond the orbit of Mars, a hidden fleet of human warships floated like shadows in the darkness. Engines were cold, weapons offline, silent predators waiting for the right moment. The Galactic Council had sent their final warning, but Earth had already made its decision. They would not kneel. At the center of this silent fleet stood the HSS Revenant, a sleek, black warship designed for deep space combat. On its bridge, Captain Elias Voss stood with his arms crossed, staring at the massive holographic display before him. It showed a terrifying image, the Council's invasion force, advancing toward Earth like a tidal wave of destruction. A younger officer swallowed hard. That's a lot of ships, sir. Voss didn't respond. He already knew. The Council had sent over 1,000 warships, massive cruisers, battleships, and dreadnoughts, each one powerful enough to reduce a city to dust. Earth's defenses were strong, but against this, it wouldn't be enough. That was why they had to strike first. The Council believed humanity was weak, predictable, but they didn't understand the true nature of humans. When backed into a corner, humans didn't beg, they bared their teeth. Voss turned to his crew. Prepare to engage. Cold launch. No energy signatures until we're in position. The order spread like wildfire. Across the fleet, human warships activated in absolute silence, drifting forward with no engine burn. The Council's fleet continued toward Earth, unaware that death was already moving toward them. A message of fire. Above Earth, the people could see the dark wall of Council warships blocking the stars. Then, without warning, boom! A massive Council battleship exploded from the inside out, sending flaming debris in all directions. Before the enemy could react, more explosions rocked the invasion force, ships bursting into fireballs one after another. Panic spread through the alien fleet. We're under attack. Where? Then, the human fleet emerged from the darkness. Like a pack of wolves, human warships rushed in, weaving between the massive enemy ships, attacking from unexpected angles. Railguns fired, missiles streaked through space, and pulse cannons tore through enemy hulls. The Council had expected a slow, fearful surrender. Instead, they were ambushed by a force that fought like demons. The battlefield turns. On the bridge of his flagship, Admiral Vecnar, commander of the Council's invasion force, watched in horror as his ships were torn apart. The humans were smaller, fewer in number, less advanced, and yet they were winning. They weren't fighting like the other species the Council had crushed before. They didn't retreat. They didn't break formation. They fought with a ferocity that made no sense. Vecnar's 3 hearts pounded as he sent out an emergency transmission. Council command, we are facing unexpected resistance. Humans here. The transmission cut off as a human missile slammed into his ship's command deck, engulfing it in flames. You started this war. We will finish it. On board the HSS Revenant, Captain Voss watched the chaos unfold. He never smiled in battle, but deep down, he knew this was the moment humanity proved itself. A transmission came through from one of the enemy ships. A trembling alien officer appeared on the screen, his eyes filled with fear. Humans, you were given a chance to surrender. You cannot win this war. Voss stepped forward, his voice calm but cold. You started this war. His eyes locked onto the enemy commander. We will finish it. With a nod, he gave the order. All ships, engage at full power. And with that, the battle for Earth had truly begun. The hidden weapon. The Council had made one fatal mistake. They believed they knew everything about humanity. They had studied Earth's history, its wars, its technology. They had crushed other civilizations before, forcing them into submission. To them, humanity was just another rebellious species, another lesson to be taught. But what they didn't know, what no alien empire could ever understand, was that humanity had a secret, a weapon so dangerous that even Earth's own leaders feared using it. The price of survival. Inside a top-secret underground bunker on Earth, hidden beneath the frozen wastelands of Antarctica, a group of the smartest minds in human history stood around a massive war table. Dr. Evelyn Cade, lead scientist of Earth's most classified project, had dark circles under her eyes. She hadn't slept in days. She tapped a command on the console, and a hologram flickered to life. A shape appeared, a sleek, black missile, unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. The room fell silent. President Sarah Lorne stared at the image. She had heard rumors, whispers about what Cade and her team had been working on. But now, looking at the weapon, she felt something deep in her chest. Fear. Project Nemesis, Dr. Cade said, her voice steady but grim. This is our last option. A general scoffed. It's just a missile. We already have nukes. Cade turned to face him. This is not a missile. It's a rewriting of the rules of war. She waved her hand, and the hologram changed, showing a simulation of what Nemesis could do. The room watched in horror. Council ships weren't just destroyed in the simulation. They were erased. The very atoms of the ships seemed to come apart, dissolving into nothing. Not burned, not exploded, just gone. It breaks matter at a fundamental level, Cade explained. It doesn't just kill, it unravels anything it touches. A deep silence filled the bunker. And the cost? President Lorne finally asked. Cade hesitated. It's unstable. We haven't fully tested it. If it misfires, she shook her head. It could wipe out an entire planet, maybe even more. The weight of her words settled over the room. This was no ordinary weapon. This was something that could change the future of war forever. And once it was used, there would be no going back. The decision. Deep in space, aboard the HSS Revenant, Captain Elias Voss leaned against the command table, watching as more human ships fought and died against the Council's overwhelming fleet. The ambush had crippled the enemy, but they were adapting, regrouping, pushing back. Humanity's first strike had been brilliant, but now the real war was beginning. A transmission crackled through. President Lorne's face appeared on the screen. Captain, we have one last move to make. Voss knew what she meant. Project Nemesis. His jaw tightened. Are you sure? Lorne's voice was calm. I need your opinion. You're on the front lines. Can we win without it? Voss looked at the battlefield. He saw human ships burning, saw soldiers fighting against impossible odds. He had already lost too many good people. He exhaled. No, we can't. Lorne nodded. Then we use it. The order was given. Project Nemesis was no longer a secret. In a hidden launch station orbiting Titan, the final preparations began. The Council's worst nightmare. On the command deck of the Council's flagship, Supreme Admiral Vecnar watched the battle unfold. His forces were still superior, still more advanced, and yet they were struggling. The humans fought with ruthless efficiency, hitting supply lines, sabotaging engines, setting traps. The more the Council pushed, the harder humanity pushed back, like animals who refused to die. Then his sensors picked up something new. A small black object had been launched from Titan's orbit. It was moving toward the Council fleet. Slowly, unthreatening. Vecnar frowned. What is that? His officers scrambled to scan it. No known power source, no standard weapon readings, just a simple black projectile. But then, all alarms in the Council's fleet began screaming. Something was wrong. Vecnar turned toward his displays, eyes widening in shock as he watched the readings. The space around the object was distorting. And then, the first ship touched it. It didn't explode. It didn't catch fire. It simply ceased to exist. The Council had never feared humanity before. Now, they realized their mistake. And it was too late. Humanity's counterattack. The laws of war had changed. The moment Project Nemesis activated, the battlefield turned silent. Council warships, once impenetrable, had been reduced to nothing. Not destroyed, not broken, erased. Whole sections of their fleet had vanished like mist in the wind, leaving only stunned survivors staring into the abyss where their comrades once stood. For the first time in recorded galactic history, the Council was afraid. The Galactic Council's retreat. Deep in the heart of the Council's flagship, Supreme Admiral Vecnar gripped the edges of his command table, his 3 hearts pounding in unison. What is this? He demanded, his voice shaking with an emotion he had never felt before. Terror. His officers had no answer. The scanners were useless. No known technology could do this. Another fleet captain appeared on the holographic screen, his face pale. Sir, they have unleashed something unnatural. We must retreat. Vecnar's nostrils flared. Retreat? The Council had never retreated. Yet, as he watched another one of his dreadnoughts drift too close to the anomaly and vanish without a trace, he realized there was no other option. With a voice full of bitter rage, he gave the order. Fall back. All ships, retreat. Across the void, the once mighty armada of the Galactic Council turned its engines and began to flee. But the humans had no intention of letting them go. The hunters become the hunted. Aboard the HFY Revenant, Captain Elias Voss watched the enemy fleet begin its retreat. He had expected them to hold the line, to fight to the last ship. Instead, they were running. A slow, dangerous smile spread across his face. I want all squadrons in pursuit, he ordered. No mercy. We end this war today. The human fleet, battered but burning with unmatched fury, ignited their thrusters and charged after the retreating enemy. What had started as a desperate defense was now a full-scale counterattack. The hunted had become the hunters. The last line of defense. The Council fleet limped toward one of their emergency hyperspace gates, a massive structure floating in deep space. If they reached it, they could escape and regroup. But humanity was faster. Squadrons of fighters swarmed like hornets, weaving through the remaining Council warships, firing torpedoes into their exposed engines. Explosions filled the void as more enemy ships crumbled under the relentless assault. On the bridge of the Council command ship, Admiral Vecnar clenched his fists. His fleet was being slaughtered. Then, a new warning filled the ship's communication system. Unidentified energy signature detected. Vecnar turned toward the viewport, his black eyes widening in horror. From behind the human fleet, Project Nemesis had begun moving again. A slow, dark shape drifting through the void. Every Council officer in the command room fell silent. Some whispered prayers, others simply closed their eyes, accepting their fate. The anomaly was coming for them. The final blow. Captain Elias Voss stood tall on the bridge of the HFY Revenant, watching the enemy struggle, watching them break. This was no longer just a battle. This was the moment humanity stepped out of the shadows and claimed its place among the stars. Target their escape gate, he commanded. End this. A dozen human warships adjusted their course. Railguns charge. Torpedoes locked on. And then, the final barrage was unleashed. The hyperspace gate erupted in a violent explosion, shattering into billions of pieces. The escape route was gone. The remaining Council ships were trapped. Admiral Vecnar let out a final defeated growl. He had never believed that his people could lose. But now, staring at the burning remains of his once great fleet, he knew the truth. They had lost. And the humans had won. Tell the galaxy what happened here. The final Council warships powered down their weapons, Some tried to send distress calls, but no help would come. Voss opened a transmission to the surviving council officers. "You came to enslave us." His voice was cold. "You called us savages. You thought we would kneel." He leaned closer to the screen. "Now you will go back and tell the galaxy what happened here today." The defeated council forces were allowed to leave, limping back toward their distant homeworlds. Because humanity wanted them to spread the message. Earth was not a world to conquer. Humanity was not a species to dominate. The age of the Galactic Council was over. And the age of humans had just begun. The Doomsday Fleet. The Galactic Council had never known fear, until now. The remnants of their once mighty armada limped back to their home sectors, their warships scarred, broken, and humiliated. Word of humanity's impossible victory spread like wildfire across the galaxy. Entire civilizations, once loyal to the Council, began to question their rule. And nothing terrified the Council more than the realization that, for the first time in history, they were no longer the most powerful force in the universe. They couldn't allow that. So they summoned the Doomsday Fleet, a weapon of extinction. Deep within the forbidden core systems of the galaxy, in a sector no species was allowed to enter, the Council's true weapon had been waiting. A fleet of Titan-class warships, each the size of a small moon, designed for one purpose: the total annihilation of rebellious civilizations. It had been 10,000 years since the Doomsday Fleet was last deployed. The Council had never needed it, until now. Inside the war chamber of the High Council, the ancient rulers of the galaxy stood in a ring of flickering holograms. Their voices were cold, their decision absolute. "Humanity is a disease," Chancellor Vordax declared. "We allowed them to exist. That was our mistake. We will correct it now." The order was given, and the Doomsday Fleet began its march toward Earth. This is not a battle. This is extermination. Back on Earth, the celebrations of victory had been short-lived. Captain Elias Voss stood in the command center of Lunar Base Sentinel, staring at the data feed with a growing sense of unease. The scans didn't make sense. Hundreds, no, thousands, of Council ships were heading toward Earth. And these were not like the fleets they had fought before. Admiral Rains, an older officer with scars across his face, leaned forward. His voice was grave. "This is not a battle, son." He pointed at the tactical readout. "This is extermination." The Doomsday Fleet was so large that it blotted out the stars. Their ships could not be outmaneuvered, could not be ambushed. These were the war machines of a civilization that had ruled for 1,000,000 years. And they were coming to erase humanity. Project Nemesis, one last gamble. We need to fire Nemesis again. The room fell silent. Dr. Evelyn Cade was the one who said it. Her face was pale, but her voice was steady. President Sarah Lauren exhaled slowly. "Last time, we barely controlled it." "We don't have a choice," Cade said. "This fleet will not stop. Even if we throw everything we have at them, they will overwhelm us." A tense silence followed. Every officer in the room understood the risk. Project Nemesis was unstable. The first time it was fired, it had destroyed a large section of the battlefield, but they still didn't fully understand how it worked. What if it backfired? What if it tore apart space itself? But the Doomsday Fleet was coming, and no conventional weapon could stop it. Captain Voss clenched his jaw. "Then we use it, and we make sure it's the last thing they ever see." The final battle begins. The Doomsday Fleet arrived at the edge of the Sol system, an endless wall of warships. Their weapons glowed with the power to shatter planets. The message they broadcast was simple: Earth will burn. The humans did not answer with words. They answered with fire. From hidden defense stations across the system, railguns fired at near-light speed, slamming into the enemy's forward ranks. Stealth ships decloaked, launching surprise missile strikes before vanishing into the darkness. Earth's fleet, outnumbered 100 to 1, fought with the ruthless precision of a species that refused to die. And then, Project Nemesis fired. The anomaly tore through the void, a silent wave of death. One of the doomsday dreadnoughts, 3 times the size of Earth's moon, simply ceased to exist. A hole opened in the Council's formation. The impossible had happened again. Humanity had drawn blood. But the Council was prepared. They had adapted. And they had one last weapon of their own. The Council's desperate move. At the heart of the Doomsday Fleet, a single monolithic warship remained untouched. It was unlike the others, black as the void, surrounded by swirling energy fields. And inside it, the Council's greatest minds had been working on something new, a countermeasure, a weapon designed specifically to stop Project Nemesis. With a single command, the monolithic warship unleashed a pulse wave across the battlefield. Project Nemesis flickered. Its energy wavered. Dr. Cade's eyes widened as she watched the readings. They've disrupted it. The Council had found a way to contain humanity's deadliest weapon. And now, they were moving in for the kill. The last stand. Captain Voss gritted his teeth. They had come so far. They had beaten the impossible before. But now, they were facing the end. His hands tightened into fists. Not today. All ships, regroup. Hit them with everything we have. Asterisk, asterisk, he commanded. The final battle had begun. But this time, humanity had no superweapon. This time, they would have to win with nothing but raw determination. And that was what humans did best. The final stand. The sky was on fire. Above Earth, the heavens were torn apart by blazing railgun rounds, missile barrages, and energy blasts so bright they turned night into day. The Doomsday Fleet, the Galactic Council's ultimate weapon, had arrived in full force. And now, humanity stood against it with everything they had left. We fight, no matter the cost. On the bridge of the HSS Revenant, Captain Elias Voss wiped blood from his forehead. Sparks rained down from damaged consoles, smoke thick in the air. The ship was barely holding together, just like the rest of Earth's fleet. "Damage report," he shouted. A panicked officer turned to him. "Shields are at 14%. Primary thrusters offline. We've lost half our fleet." Voss clenched his jaw. It wasn't enough. The Council's counterweapon had worked. Project Nemesis had been disrupted. Their ultimate trump card was gone. And now, they were outnumbered, outgunned, outmatched, but not out of the fight. He slammed his fist on the table. "We fight, no matter the cost." His voice was steel. "If we die here, we make sure they remember us." The officers around him didn't hesitate. No one begged for mercy, because they were human, and humans did not kneel. The shield of Earth. The Doomsday Fleet closed in, their planet-killer weapons priming to fire. Deep inside the human defense grid, orbital stations adjusted their massive cannons, Earth's final line of defense, a network of hidden plasma turrets and kinetic bombardment satellites. Activated. The sky erupted. Massive energy beams shot from Earth's surface, striking the enemy Titans with full force. The outermost dreadnoughts, each the size of a moon, cracked under the pressure. They were still fighting. But the enemy kept coming. For every one they destroyed, 5 more took its place. Humanity's last bastion was breaking. And the enemy was ready to deliver the final blow. The Council's arrogance. On the bridge of the Council's command dreadnought, Supreme Admiral Vecnar watched the battle with cold satisfaction. Humanity had fought well, better than he had expected. But this was inevitable. The Council had ruled the galaxy for 1,000,000 years. They had crushed thousands of species before. They would do the same to Earth. All ships, he commanded, target the surface. Burn their world to ash. Massive planet-cracking cannons hummed to life. The final shot, the death of humanity, was just seconds away. And then, the impossible happened. The last trick up humanity's sleeve. Deep within Earth's defense network, in a hidden bunker buried beneath the Pacific Ocean, Dr. Evelyn Cade and her team of scientists worked frantically. They had one last shot. Project Nemesis had been disrupted, but not destroyed. Cade's fingers flew across the console. If we can't fire it normally, we fire it manually. A scientist turned to her, eyes wide. That will kill us all. Cade didn't hesitate. Then we die saving our world. She activated the final override. The return of Nemesis. In orbit, just as the Council's weapons began to fire, the space around Earth rippled. A dark void, like a tear in the universe itself, began expanding. The pulse wave that had once disabled Nemesis was suddenly reversed. And now, it was amplified. A new wave of energy shot outward, tearing through reality itself. The first Council dreadnought at the front of the fleet vanished instantly. The second ship tried to move, but was erased before it could escape. Panic spread through the enemy fleet. Nemesis was no longer a single weapon. Now, it was a storm, spreading across space, devouring everything it touched. Run. On the bridge of the Council's flagship, alarms screamed. Vetkinar's eyes widened in disbelief. Impossible. He turned to his officers. Get us out of here. But it was too late. Nemesis tore through the enemy ranks like a cosmic wildfire. Ships that had stood for centuries, gone in seconds. Entire sections of the Doomsday Fleet were consumed, lost to an oblivion they could never escape. The Council had thought they were invincible. They had never been more wrong. The moment that changed the galaxy. As the final remnants of the Council's armada fled, Earth's forces pulled back, watching the spectacle unfold. For the first time in history, a galactic empire had been broken. For the first time, humanity had won. Captain Elias Voss, bloody but standing, took a deep breath. "Send the message," he said. "Let them know." Across the stars, across every remaining fleet, the words echoed. The war is over. Humanity stands. The Council falls. And at that moment, everything changed. Victory or extinction. The war was over. But no one knew what came next. The Doomsday Fleet was shattered. The Council's forces had flowed into the void, their once mighty armada reduced to wreckage drifting in space. And yet, even in victory, Earth was silent. Because humanity had survived something no species was ever meant to survive. And now, the galaxy was watching. The ashes of war. On the bridge of the HSS Revenant, Captain Elias Voss stood motionless, staring at the wreckage floating outside his viewport. The battle had ended only hours ago, but already the consequences were rippling across the stars. Council distress signals were going unanswered. Entire fleets had gone dark, and the few Council ships that had survived were running. For the first time in a million years, they were afraid. Voss exhaled. His body ached, his uniform torn, his mind heavy with the weight of what they had done. "Captain," a voice called from the comm station. He turned, his expression unreadable. "We're receiving transmissions from everywhere." The officer hesitated. "Other species, they're asking if it's true, if the Council really lost." Voss didn't answer immediately. He only stepped forward, watching the stars beyond the burning debris. Then he spoke. "Tell them what happened here. Tell them the truth." The fall of the Galactic Council. Word of humanity's victory spread across the galaxy like wildfire. For centuries, the Council had ruled with absolute power. No species had ever dared defy them, let alone defeat them. But now their empire was fracturing. Entire colonies refused to send tribute. Allied species broke their treaties. Former Council loyalists vanished into hiding. And in the heart of the Council's homeworld, the High Chancellor stood before the shattered remains of his command room, his hands shaking. He turned to his advisors, his voice hollow. "What do we do?" No one had an answer. Because for the first time in history, the Council was no longer in control. What happens now? Back on Earth, inside the war room of the United Terran Command, President Sarah Lorne sat at the head of a long table. Around her, the surviving leaders of humanity argued over the future. "We should strike now, finish the job," one general shouted. "No," another argued. "We've won. Let the galaxy see the truth. We're not conquerors." Lorne listened, silent. Voss was there too, standing against the wall, his arms crossed. He had seen the war up close. He had watched friends die, had fought in the blood and the fire. And now, as the argument raged, he finally spoke. "The galaxy has a choice." The room fell silent. Voss stepped forward, his voice steady. "They can fight us, like the Council did." His gaze swept across the room. "Or they can stand with us." A long pause. Then President Lorne nodded. "Send the message." The decision was made. Humanity would not rule the galaxy through fear, but neither would they be ruled by it. The broadcast that changed everything. Across the stars, across every world that had once feared the Council, a message appeared on screens, radios, and holograms. It was simple. No threats, no declarations of conquest. Just a statement. "We are humanity. We do not kneel. We do not conquer. We do not forget. The old order is gone. The future is yours to decide. Stand with us or against us. But note this: we will never be slaves. We will never be silent. And we will never be defeated." The galaxy held its breath. And then, world after world answered. The birth of the Turin Accord. The months that followed were like nothing in history. Some species allied with Earth, eager to break free from the Council's shadow. Others feared humanity, whispering that they were the new conquerors. But no one could ignore them. And so, from the ashes of war, a new power rose. The Turin Accord, a coalition of free worlds, united not by force, but by choice. For the first time, the galaxy had something greater than an empire. It had a revolution, and humanity stood at the heart of it. The final words of a warrior. On a quiet night, long after the war had ended, Captain Elias Voss stood alone on a balcony, overlooking the ruins of what had once been a Council warship. Dr. Evelyn Cade stepped beside him. Thinking about the future, Voss exhaled, looking up at the stars. "No," he said, "thinking about what comes after." She frowned. "Is there a difference?" He smirked. "We'll find out soon enough." The galaxy had changed. The war was over. But humanity's story was just beginning. Epilogue. The unknown awaits. Far beyond the reaches of known space, in the darkness of an uncharted sector, something stirred. A silent signal, ancient and unreadable, pulsed from the void. Something had heard the war. Something had been watching. And now, as humanity stepped into a new age, they did not realize one final truth. The greatest battles were still ahead, and the universe had only just begun to take notice. The end.